What do you want? Dennis, come here. Say hi. Dennis is going to say hi to everybody. Big cat
Aww.
says hi.
Hi, Dennis.
He, yeah, I took him in about 3.5 years ago, and he was really overweight, and so he has dropped some pounds, and he doesn't like it. He was accustomed in his old home to eating whatever he wanted, which explains why he needed to lose a little bit of weight. So I'm sympathetic. You know, I like to be able to do that, but there's a cost. So his sort of habit, he's down almost to the vet-approved weight of 14 pounds, which is pretty big for a kitty cat. Hey, get out of there. Now sometimes he acts like he can just eat anything. Dude, that's an eraser. Come here. Stop it. Get through the day. Every once in a while he eats something that is not food, and we have to go to the vet, and he's eat something that's not food. Life with animals, huh? Okay, well, enough of that. Tonight, let's see. Okay, so tonight we have Art Deco, the early modernism and international style, and some information about some of the very first interior designers. Are often referred to as interior decorators, but you can call them decorators or designers. The term, as I mentioned last week, the term interior designer really became more common when architecture needed specialists with the very tall buildings that started to get made in the 1920s and 1930s. So you have buildings of upwards of 100 stories. You would not have a single client in the entire building, of course, and so you need different clients have different needs, and architects aren't trained to design interiors like designing for specific clients. It's more engineering and building systems. So we'll look at some of the first women to do that, and this is as architecture is largely a male-dominated field, interior design becomes a field dominated by women, partly because it was treated as if it's decoration and that's for ladies, and then you get women who take it to a level that is just as serious as any other discipline. So have any of you ever if you ever done any interior design or design work and have people assume that you're a decorator? Maybe some of you haven't done this yet. Well, that is a common error that people make. And when studying this, it's serious. You have to learn how to make construction drawings and understand construction drawings and understand aspects of architecture that go beyond surface treatments. So, okay, let's see. Should we start with? We'll talk about the early designer decorators. Let's open that up and share the screen. Okay, let's do here. All right. So this presentation is titled "The Interior Decorator." This is Elsie DeWolf. Elsie DeWolf is mentioned in the last paragraph of the 8th chapter in the Smith book, Furniture: A Concise History. Okay, so this is the author is writing about the furniture and design just before World War I. That was 1914 to 1917, 1918, I'm sorry. And as he writes, another innovation just before the war, though I'll agree with him that this is less important, the rise of the professional decorator. As it has been said that the person who invented the concept of interior decoration as we know it today was the novelist Edith Wharton, who started her career as a writer by collaborating with Ogden Cookman on a volume called The Decoration of Houses, which was published in 1897. She preached a cautious, sensible, good taste, albeit on a rather grand scale, which has been the stock in trade of most professional decorators ever since. The first person to practice decorating as a profession was the ex-actress Elsie DeWolf, who survived to publish her memoirs entitled After All as late as 1935. In this book, she describes how she carried out the commission which made her reputation, the decoration of the new Colony Club in New York in 1905. The Colony Club was in its way a revolutionary undertaking. It was to be conducted, this is a quote, it was to be conducted on the same lines as a men's club and was to be a retreat where women could go and men go to their clubs for relaxation and entertainment. So I believe I mentioned this last week. There were men's clubs were very common, and there was nothing for women. And so there was the Colony Club, and Elsie DeWolf did the decoration, the interiors for it, which was important. Which was, of course, there were always those people that would complain, like, after when men have their clubs, but then when women do it, like, all of a sudden it's a problem. I disagree with that opinion. Why not do this? So the Colony Club was revolutionary. It aroused an immense amount of interest. Mr. Wolf's decorations, fresh, simple, and practical, with a lavish use of chintz, hitherto more or less confined to bedrooms, were hugely influential. Colony Club was a feminist enterprise, and the decorator used it as an opportunity to make a feminist statement, a fact of which she seems to have been perfectly aware. Though homes had always been regarded as the province of women, it was only now that women asserted an absolute right to decide what would go into them. Houses had often been eclectic before, filled with the possessions of different generations, but it took the rise of the decorator to make eclecticism into a principle, so that an interior became a collage, balancing claims of personality and practicality, making use of what was available rather than inventing something new to replace it. I think that last sentence is a pretty good, definition of sorts of what interior design is, that you work with existing homes often, most of the time, and you work with a lot of, some things get replaced, but you also have to work with existing furniture, objects, artwork, heirlooms, and so you are not just, it's not a brand new composition. So the idea of interior design as collage, I think, is a very good. It's a very good point, and um, that's not going to be exactly the same every time it's done. If you renovate, like if you're doing a design for a brand new kitchen, it's going to be, you have the opportunity to have everything new. Um, so, but I think that the Colony Club, I think, was a good is a an important interior because it was a space that was designed by a woman for women. Okay, so Elsie DeWolf, she was an actor on stage, and she was known for this like unique arrangement she had, where she was always allowed to decide her own wardrobe, and she became known more for what she wore rather than the performances that she was in, and she moved into what was known then as interior decoration, but it's really interior. Um, I would give her more credit. It is more like what is modern interior design. So this is Elsie DeWolf's dining room. So the idea of arranging an interior with intention is really what's behind this. The idea of just people like stuck with random heirlooms from different generations, and you live with it because it's there. Um, that's not really good enough. You think about what are the furnishings? Do they go together? What is the color scheme? Um, color schemes are very important. Any color scheme isn't it's a meant to be a harmonious arrangement based on um, the relationships colors have on the color wheel. And so, when you choose furnishings, flooring, wall coverings, paint colors, those need to be coordinated in a harmonious way. Hardwood floor, the sort of like orangey, sort of like nice sort of like golden orangey wood color, that covering so much of a surface of an interior, that becomes part of the color scheme. Okay. Oh, by the way, he mentions the term chintz. Do you know what chintz is? It's CHINZ. Someone share with us what chintz is. You can look it up if you want to.
It's kind of like a floral.
Yeah, floral pattern fabric, but part of what makes chintz is the sheen on it. It's kind of like it has like a it's almost like I think it's like it's like I've read like that it's like the term glazed, that it is like it sort of has like it's like a often a floral print that has a that's got a sheen to its surface.
Yeah, the definition says printed multicolored cotton fabric with a glazed finish, used especially for curtains and upholstery.
Excellent, thank you. You may encounter it, or it's one of those things where the more you know, the better the better range of ideas you can have for a potential client in the future. There are a lot of things where you might think personally you think it looks terrible, but it might be the right thing for a certain situation, and it might suit a client's taste best. Okay, so here's an image of the Colony Club. A lot of these like black and white photos are black and white photos because these places are, some of these places don't really exist anymore. But so the Colony Club, this is, the design is. I mean, does the design look unified to you? A lot of pattern, but the pattern is consistent, and the furnishings are unified, and especially for the early 20th century, it's compared to the what cluttered Victorian interiors, it's pretty simple. So she was, Elsie de Wolfe was known for simplifying, sort of like cleaning up dark, cluttered interiors of the Victorian age, sort of pointing a new direction. This is by a designer named Mark Hampton, a dining room in New York, 1989. That's like uses the same, this sort of like some of like this like it's really meant to be like a almost like an homage to Elsie de Wolfe and the Colony Club. I like the wall covering that looks like columns. And that Chippendale furniture, can't go wrong. And it looks like the upholstery is Elsie de Wolfe upholstery on the chairs. Okay, and this is the Frick House. The Frick, Henry Clay Frick, was an industrialist, and he and his wife Adelaide were collectors of art. And if you go to New York City, you can go to the Frick, which their mansion in Manhattan was turned into a museum. There's also a separate. Actually, no, it's not. That's not the Frick. Is it the Frick? I can never remember. The Cloisters is a separate museum that's in northwestern Manhattan. That is a medieval collection. I think it's the medieval collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. My bad. The Frick is basically it's kind of like the Guggenheim, in that it was a private collection that became so large it turned into a museum. And I've been to the Frick. It's it's a beautiful house. It's preserved as a place. Like some of the rooms are preserved as they were as they were originally designed. So this was something that in the Henry Clay Frick was an industrialist in the steel industry and made a ton of money, and so they had plenty of money to to buy artwork, to pay for this mansion to be built, to pay for interiors to be designed. And Elsie de Wolfe was like, normally men did this kind of thing, but Elsie de Wolfe campaigned and got part of the job of doing the interiors. They kept her work up on the second floor, but she was confident that she should be one of the people doing this. And I think one of the article that I posted on the Blackboard this afternoon is from the Architectural Design. It's an article about Elsie de Wolfe. One of the bills that she submitted to Frick was for $91,000, and this is in 1914, 1915. It's a lot of money. They're not goofing around. Elsie de Wolfe is already from a wealthy family, but that's often the case with people from earlier generations that you had to come from a place where you didn't have to, if you were from a working class family, then you had to go get a job. You didn't have time to, you didn't have the luxury of studying or, you know, just like, learning about things like theater and furniture and design. So here, this is really more of a like a deco style interior. You can see with like the large, like just like white unadorned surfaces, the mirror with the Ionic capital. Hey. But this is quite beautiful. We're going to look at some more deco interiors with the next slideshow. So this is 1930s. That's right in the Art Deco period. We'll talk more about what Art Deco is, but I like the mirror surround on the fireplace. Really is kind of almost like makes it confusing. You can see on the opposite wall there are also more mirrors. But you can see this French style of furniture. She really did like this like 18th century, like sort of like 18th century French elements in furnishings. But I do have to say I do really appreciate the way deco, just like with these large white surfaces, really allows things like pattern and even like traditional furniture, or even like older styles of like like sort of neoclassical elements can be seen a lot more clearly than in the Victorian interior. It's more like it's intentionally emphasized. Elliot.
So would you say that that use of glass is kind of something that she tried to pull into a lot of her design?
Um, this,
Like
I
of the
think
mirrors, I mean, not
the mirrors. I think the mirrors are like part of the Art Deco style.
okay.
I mean, this seems less like I would say I would give Art Deco as a style more credit for the mirrors than Elsie DeWolf.
Okay. Perfect.
But she didn't have any problem using them. So Dorothy Draper, another Art Deco interior designer, Carlisle Hotel in New York. So Art Deco. We'll talk more about Art Deco with the next slideshow. But Art Deco has this sort of combination of like modern and traditional at the same time. So there are certain styles like Baroque and Rococo styles get mixed into very modern, like modern style, like modern materials and modern design. And the red, I think the red seems like it's a little unusual, but it's a hotel room. It's not a residence. So I mean, I like it, but it's kind of gutsy to put all that red in there. So now we're also, we'll also see that with some of this stuff from like the like Art Deco. Art Deco has a relationship with early films, like black and white films, and like the silent films, and also the early like films with sound in the late 20s, 1930s, where this sort of like theatrical design and like, well, the sort of like this the theatrical nature of it becomes part of Art Deco. So here, this the entrance to the Camellia House restaurant at the Drake Hotel in Chicago, 1941. So this is now into the World War II era, since World War II is being fought in Europe. But look at that. It's kind of like some like Baroque or Rococo ideas with this what looks like traditional classical ornament, but the scale of it is really exaggerated. Elliot, what are you doing? Sorry, Elliot really wants to lie down on the keyboard. All right, so here is the restaurant at the Camellia House. More mirrors, mirrored columns. It will, sort of like it does. It's like you can imagine how putting mirrors on the columns would obscure them, and they do kind of like disappear in the space, which I think is a really pretty smart move. That could get a little, I guess, if it's a little disorienting. Like Hall of Mirrors, where like you can't quite tell like what's what, like what's real, what's a reflection. But I think it's an interesting choice, and probably a good choice, because it does make those columns vanish in a lot of to a great degree. This back to this booth seating looks kind of like Biedermeier in some respect. Any like Art Deco does have an element of pulling previous styles from the past into the present. And anything that's been done before that's been successful is fair game. But this a lot of really elaborate drapery, which really does help make this look, to me, looks very, very theatrical. And this very interesting, the upholstery on these chairs is, I think it's very interesting. It's unusual. It's really quite interesting. I mean, it's kind of like a branch, but not really. Like some clumsy marble veining or something. I think it looks good. San Francisco, things are happening in California. And check out this chair right here in the center. Do you see how low that chair is? That very like low seating, this kind of like loungy low seating, that's a feature of Art Deco. And then you also had to have low cocktail tables invented to go with that low seating. So comfort, casual, those are elements of an Art Deco interior. And here in the darn it, there are these modern windows and mirrors, these sort of like mirrored panels in between the windows. So with modern buildings with steel frame construction, the exterior of the building doesn't have to have much mass, and so the vertical piece is called a mullion between the sort of like part of the framing of the window. And so that mullion can be pretty thin. And in this case, they're actually like, there's like a wider panel in between the windows. Um, and the mirror, you can see the mirror strikes again. And look at the warships out in the bay or in the ocean. This is a penthouse apartment in San Francisco. You can see over to the left here. It looks like there are a lot of like Navy vessels out there. Very interesting. This is restaurant at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Would you want to go and have dinner there? Or that's just, like coffee and a pastry? I think it looks cool. I love those like ridiculous pendant lights. I mean, and this, I think it's a good illustration of like interior design is art, really, in a lot of respects, because the Metropolitan Museum of Art could have had a restaurant built without going to this extent. But if you've got the money and you have the idea of it and you want to make your place special, then you do this sort of thing. And you pay for the construction, you pay for all of the furnishings, you pay for the designer who can give you this. So yeah, so I think Dorothy Draper's work is very interesting. This is more like late deco. So 1942, yeah. Though, like when styles fade out is usually pretty soft. But this you still have like through World War II into the late 40s, even into the 1950s, you still get this kind of like Art Deco still persists. Yeah, there's a television show that can be a little difficult to watch. It's called Ratched, and it's about Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the sadistic nurse in that book and film, and it's about her early career, like how she, as a sociopath, got herself established at a psychiatric hospital. The reason, to me, one of the most interesting things is the way the art, the Art Deco style of this psychiatric hospital in California, and like the wardrobe and the sets are impressive. They're impressively done. So, but beware, it's a little unsettling. Which I watched 2 episodes and decided, okay, I need to take a break. Haven't gone back to it yet. I don't mind suspense and certain amount of if there's some difficult aspects to a story, but anyway, it's good art. They have very good Art Deco interiors in that series. All right. The Fairmont Hotel. I've been there. I've stayed at that hotel. It looks. The architecture is still exactly that. The furniture is nothing like that anymore, which is really too bad. It has the really kind of more like, this looks like it is like Victorian furniture in a way. It does like this like circular kind of like a settee or something, and these chairs really look like they're look pretty Victorian. But White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia in the late 1940s. Now this, I love this. This is weird. This is almost like postmodern before there was such a thing as postmodern. Um, the clock with that really crazy sculptural surround, and I think that less variety in the patterning would have been nice. Like, but that I love the carpet, but that wall, like the striped wall, is like I have to say I like that quite a bit. Francis Elkins. So some of this, there's a yeah, Francis Elkins was in Illinois and Chicago, and this the did some design like interiors in Lake Forest, and I'd say I love this entrance and staircase. This, so like the furniture, this is an Asian themed furniture, or I guess interior, with the wall covering. The architecture is not, but the wall covering and the chairs have a bamboo appearance, and that is like that sort of like almost like a pinwheel to the back of the chair is what is referred to as a Chinese fret. Chippendale used that, like the designs that he did that were Chinese used that fret. So I don't love this, but it is coordinated. It is a coordinated application of color, wall coverings, furnishings. The library. That sofa is a deco sofa. It's like overstuffed cushions, super comfy. Like you sink into it, you might just disappear between the cushions like a little quarter. It looks like you just like never be able to get up from it. It looks inviting. And these were the days when books had more uniform spines on them, although maybe it's just a bunch of, I'm not sure what those books are. This is more deco. Do you see the pliant at the dressing table? Louis XIV. That's French. So yeah, deco. Deco was like you can say that French, like that Art Deco embraced the use of traditional French design. Simple statement. And here we have the women's dressing room or hall of mirrors. I guess men only need one mirror. I think this is a little overkill on the mirrors, but at the same time, it's not as if you could design this with all those mirrors and not know that that's what's going to happen. So the idea of expanding the space and making it almost like a big crystal, I think is interesting. I like the yellow. Mirrors definitely reflect a lot of light around, as they did in the olden days for Louis XIV at Versailles. and some more yellow. Interesting chairs. But this dressing table back here uh, does look so they still has that like traditional French design to it. Bed designed by Siri Mom, another designer, and here, right. I mean, it does seem that like later, as you get into um, the 40s, some of this color comes in. I think the color of this photograph is a little bit like it's a little punchy, like Technicolor. Um, it is awfully saturated, but I suppose you could certainly could have like a glossy red paint. Okay, so you see these designers are moving around, like they're working around different parts of the country, East Coast, Chicago, West Coast. So it's becoming more of a national. Like some of these these women are sought after around the country for their work. More heavy drapery, and of course, Frances Elkins didn't design the architecture, so I don't I don't know that that stair would have been hers. I need to look into that. Hey, oh, Le Corbusier. Maybe she did. Borrowing from, that's exactly the same stair. So often architects have often referred to that as a circular stair, meaning in plan it's a circle. You can say spiral because it forms a spiral in 3 dimensions. But Le Corbusier is a French modernist, and you can see this very traditional furniture, which would not have been Le Corbusier's choice, but the stairway definitely him. Nice. So this is Frances Elkins, yellow. And, yeah, San Francisco, it's going to be small. Okay, and this is her home in San Francisco. What do you think about that striped wall covering going over the ceiling? Very interesting choice. You don't have to stop at the ceiling, but you see like so like if you look at that, the alternating light dark, that's like white and gold. Um, that attracts attention, and it demands like both of them, the contrast going back and forth, light dark, light dark, light dark. It's really hard not to look at it. Um, so yeah, that became a thing in the 1970s too. Like you know, wall covering that went up the wall over the ceiling. But in the 1970s, they went farther with like plaid, and it was the same plaid wall covering that covered the ceiling, and that same plaid was used for the upholstery and the carpeting and the window treatments in some cases. So it was like you really like were completely engulfed by plaid or whatever pattern they chose to use. But plaid was popular in the 70s. All right, and finally, Siri Mom. So beige. Beige was kind of beige was her thing, and this idea that like this like neutral was, I guess, kind of the idea. So here, Jean Harlow in Dinner at 8, which was a film in 1933, and the set designed by Mom with 11 shades of white. Or I guess I would say 11 values of white, perhaps. So, black and white films, color didn't matter as much as contrast. So, this Mr. Smith writes about this, that this sort of like had this, in some cases, the unintentional effect of making this sort of like monochromatic or achromatic color schemes popular when they were really done that way for films because they're filmed in black and white. And so contrast was more important than color. You wouldn't have to worry so much about color in a black and white film. You had to worry about contrast. Oh, Friedrich Schinkel. This is, yeah, he was sort of like the German godfather of German architecture. Let's see. Get to, yeah, here. So Mom uses this triple alabaster lamp. This is from, that is ancient Egyptian. And you can see it is, a facsimile of it is created for this console. And yes, this is a very interesting bathroom. Lots of mirrors, carpeted. The commode or toilet is over here. A chair, very cleverly disguising the appliance. But these like the ionic, this like mirror that is, and like metal, like sort of chrome and mirror that has that has classical elements in it. There's a lot going on here, isn't there? And here you have a cover for the stool by the bathtub. This design, you see these ridges at the base of the bathtub. This is an Art Deco move with this sort of like stepped back, what is referred to as a ziggurat that appears in ancient temples from the Americas, from Persia. So instead of like a Egyptian pyramid is just like a clean, like triangular form, ziggurats have this sort of like, they're, it's like vertical, horizontal, and then they just get smaller as they get to the center as they rise. All right. Oh, I love this ottoman that has, or this like, yeah, this ottoman that looks like it's upholstered with a plastic bag. That's just a very glossy 1940s. We don't really, I'm not sure what that is. Synthetics are really new. We don't get a lot of like synthetics like vinyl until after World War II. But that might be, it did exist before. And these tufted chairs, asymmetrical. There's one arm. They're meant to just, so you don't have an arm obscuring, like sort of like impeding your like your path to the table if you're going to set your drink down there. It looks as though you can also push them together to form a little love seat. which I guess would slide apart. Interesting ideas. Okay, so you get the idea, Siri Mom. Yeah. Here, so, like some of this like later stuff that's like, sort of like, it's kind of like Art Deco on its way out. In the 1950s, like, are you familiar with mid-century modern? So this is like 1950, 1953. Mid-century modern is already there. So this is more like, still hanging on to Art Deco. And some of these like more, in a way, like there's modern because you see this like this, it's like meshy steel frame on this, well, I guess you could call that a chaise, and the very odd-looking frames on these stools. But it's really like kind of a, I guess collage is would be a good way to put it. I don't particularly like this collage. Okay, and that is Billy Baldwin. So coordination of color and pattern, that's very busy. So we're getting into 60s. Ah, yes, here we go. Oh, like, oh my God, I love this. It's great. So much pattern. So like yeah, you get into like pattern galore. Yeah, I didn't mean to get, I guess I forgot that Billy Baldwin was there in this, but that does get into like, 50s and 1960s, which so it gets us a little too far, a little farther than I wanted to get. But this is a common thing here. This sort of like becomes common like 60s, 1970s. This is 1956. Pattern is good, more pattern is better. I like this one too, and oh, this, I like this, so like, we'll just get all of them. And contrasting patterns, I don't think it works very well. I think you have to be careful because you can make chaos. Sometimes your client wants chaos, but I think that in general it's definitely something to think about. Okay, so that how does that look to you? Is that interesting? I hope it is. This is
A little busy.
What's that?
A little busy.
Yeah, but I mean all of it, like the entire, like, there is.
Oh yeah.
There is
I
a.
love Dorothy Draper.
What's
She
that?
is. I love Dorothy Draper.
Yeah,
She's one of my favorites. I love her stuff.
yeah, yeah. I think Dorothy Draper to me is. I think she's the best of them. Elsie DeWolf, I think, should be given a lot of credit for really getting things going. And as I mentioned last week, in Chicago, there was a woman named Frances Harrington, and she was the founder of what became Harrington Institute of Interior Design, the school that I taught at. That was Harrington Institute of Interior Design up until 2003, when they took on more programs and changed the name to Harrington College of Design. And for a long time, it was a very successful, small interior design school, and it taught only interior design. It was a very rigid program. You did it only the way it was offered, and if you couldn't do it, you didn't go to school there. And that was just how it was. It stayed small, around 400 students, until it was purchased by the Career Ed Corporation, and they wanted to make a bigger school with more degree offerings, and I think they really overdid it, and they did not take good enough care of the interior design program. That was the thing that people knew the school for, and it is unfortunately closed. And I have a lot of thoughts that I will not share here because it's off subject. I wish the school were still there. I think that, in my opinion, there's no reason. I know why they did it, and I think they were wrong to let the school go. So, oh well, we'll just work on turning Harper into a comparable program with excellent tradition and students that go off and do excellent things. Okay. Yeah. So these are the people that came before you, and this is like in the 20th century. This is where we start to get interior designers, and so this is important to know. And if you're ever looking for it, if you're ever looking for ideas, like I'm designing an interior for a client, and it's got a fairly big budget. Go look at Dorothy Draper's work, and just see, like, what did she do? What could your client might not know anything about these people, and so you can borrow. You absolutely should borrow ideas from other successful people that came before you. As we used to say in art school, you cannot create in a vacuum, meaning you always have to get ideas from outside yourself. You don't have to reinvent design every time you do it. And that's something that it's in any creative pursuit. If you decide you want to write, how do you know what's good writing unless you read? So if you want to be a musician, you have to listen to a lot of music to know what's been done and where do you fit. So I recommend you spend as much time as you can looking at interior design. Because even if you look at it and decide, like, this Billy Baldwin interior, you decide, like, that's terrible, then that's not where you're at. You're someplace else. And that was a very important part of art school. I really did appreciate the challenge and there was a certain, I guess, almost like a camaraderie amongst all of us, where we were all trying to find our place. Like, where do I fit in, sort of like in all the different styles of, that have existed. You don't have to say I am only one thing, but you can appreciate, you sort of like, there are definitely things you think this is more my sensibility, and then there are other things I could say not my sensibility. For a designer, there's like what your client wants is extremely important, but that doesn't mean that your opinion doesn't matter. You should always talk to clients, listen to the client, find out what do they want, and you find a way to give it to them that is, if possible, better than they expected. Because things they don't know. You can find things for them that they wouldn't even know exist, and they wouldn't even know that they want it until you show it to them. Okay, we're going to take a break here. I'm going to stop